Hey legends, and welcome back to the channel. I am PommyInOz, and today we're unpacking something serious. Usually we like some jokes, we like some northern banter, but this is more than 4 points. We're unpacking one of the off-field flashpoints of the season, and probably one of the biggest ones so far. And this one is quite a deep cut. It's Willie Rioli's strike threat and then the silence. The AFL's decided not to suspend him, not to fine him, and honestly not to say anything at all. But when you take a step back, this isn't about one player. This is about consistency. It's about trusting the system. And ultimately, it's about having a fair go in the environment that we stop players not only making mistakes, but also give them the proper rehabilitation to handle it. So let's make sure we can look into this and see where the AFL need to drive their standards. So let's start with what happened. Rioli struck Bailey Dale off the ball during Port's clash with the Doggies. It's cheap, it's late, and he's nowhere near the contest. And he copped a $1,000 fine, nothing more. But then that's when the real drama started. And Tom Morris reported this here, that the text was, "I have a lot of friends in Darwin. Bailey Dale should be careful about leaving the hotel." And this was sent to one of Bailey Dale's teammates via Instagram, evidently. Now, that's not sledging, that's a cold threat. And if it wasn't made in the heat of the moment either, it came the next day. Cold day of light, you've slept on it, it's deliberate, it's premeditated. And this led Gerard, Whateley and Garry Lyon to have this opinion on the matter.
Just the prima facie. So before you dig into the background, and the prima facie, this would meet conduct unbecoming. And I think in a different circumstance, this is a straight up suspension. If you're sending threatening messages to a player the day after a game, you can go and sit for a while.
That's the one that which takes it into a category that needs to be addressed, is that we all do and say things on the ground that you think back to and go, well, I probably wouldn't say that if I had my time again, but if you slept on it and you've woken up the next day and you've gone again, then you put yourself at the mercy of however the AFL want to come back, and they could easily have made a week from this.
So with that being said, what did the AFL do? Well, nothing, quite literally. They put out a soft statement saying that the clubs had resolved the matter privately and then reminded everyone to keep communication respectful. The AFL statement read like this.
AFL looked into this during the day and they've come back with nothing, including just a reminder to both clubs to ensure that any communications remain respectful. I don't think the Bulldogs needed any sort of reminder in this. As for Port Adelaide, so Willie Rioli did apologise. So that's the key part to it. Had he not apologised, then maybe we're in different territory. Aware of the private message sent, the matter is now being resolved privately after Willie contacted Bailey Dale from the Bulldogs.
Wow. And some ex-players were having it. Tim Watson went hard.
Willie Rioli reaches out to Bailey Dale and apologises. That's fine. Everybody apologises once they've been caught out. That's just standard behaviour of human beings. You just apologise. That doesn't mean to say that it can just be swept under the carpet and there not be any form of penalty or discipline applied by the AFL. I am staggered that they have just allowed what they did allow yesterday to be the course of action that was taken on their behalf.
Now, for me, this isn't about piling on Rioli. This is about the AFL making rules that are clear and not on the run, right? If we look at it at the start of the year, GWS, Josh Fahey, for example, got 4 weeks for the incident with the sex doll where he was simulating SA. And quite rightly so. He got a consequence, there was an action, and hopefully through that punishment, he learnt a lesson. You can't just have Mad Monday or whatever it is and do what you want and have a bit of fun, right? Jeremy Finlayson got 3 weeks for a homophobic slur, as did Lance Collard. Spot on, right? In the heat of the battle, yes, things are emotive, but there is a certain line of morality we draw, and we don't do it. Tex Walker, he also got a ban for racially aggravated on the field of play. Spot on, right? Spot on. We want to have punishment when you overstep the line. If there is a punishment, there is an action, there is a consequence, falsehood action, you are going to think twice. That's how it is. And then during that punishment, we have to re-educate you. We stamp down the learning from it in the hopes that people don't do it anymore because there is a suspension. but also the fact that we can make an example that people can change and people can be educated to be better. Bailey Smith, Mr. Harley Reid, they got fined multiple times for just giving the bird. Now you've got Willie Rioli sending what is a clear threat to a player off the field of battle the day after, and nothing happens. Now, Jay Clark, he went on to write, why does Rioli get nothing for making a serious threat about Dale's personal safety? The answer, guesswork, because there's no framework. As the AFLPA's been saying for years, the conduct unbecoming clause is broken. It lacks structure, consistency and transparency. Until that changes, we make it up week to week and players know it. Now, this is where, for me, you've got to get real about this. You can't just have fluid rules for a non-fluid situation. For me, I don't see much difference in a threat to violence, to simulating SA, to using homophobic and racial motivated language. I see them all as punishable offences. I don't think there is a nuance at all. These are societal behaviours that we want to stamp out. And I'm not saying that there is no arc of redemption for Willie Rioli, as I'm not saying there's no arc of redemption for Lance Collard. He's a young kid who said something foolish. You look at players like Tex Walker, a lot of Indigenous players came to his defence saying that he was a great leader of the football club and stood by them. People make mistakes, people make egregious mistakes, but there has to be a consequence, and then there has to be a formulation for hopefully we can cure them or we can make them better. But there has to be a punishment. And when you are threatening violence, what is any difference here than saying, you wait till I see you on the field of play, you're dead, and then a player goes out and concusses them? Are we going to treat that any differently? Because we've just had a 3-week suspension for Paul Curtis for a football action. Now, we've got to be real here. Rioli's not just a villain in a story. He's had a tough year. He's had emotional strain, family grievances. His father passed away. He had that Hawthorn incident where he said, which was now deleted, play with fire, you're going to get burnt. My hatred for the club goes way past last year's antics. What they did to my dad and brother is why I can't stand them. And this post led to a plethora of horrible racist and homophobic abuse. And Ken Hinckley had to say this.
There almost should be a law that makes people accountable. I think it's an absolute disgrace. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, the racism that still goes on in our world. Like, with the way we talk about lots of things in society, and yet that is still tolerated and still allowed to go on, there almost should be a law that makes people accountable. I think it's an absolute disgrace. We support him really well and we support him closely, and he knew that we were there to care for him. And whatever he needed, we were there to help him.
And fair play to Port. They wrapped their arms around him as they should. They supported him and warned him that obviously you can't make them post, but the actions that came are abhorrent. And hopefully, if we lived in a proper world, people on social media would be punished. So this isn't a hit job on Willie. It's a critique of the system that, again, seems to convolute off-field conflict with culture, anger, trauma, and emotions that get thrown into the mix that change the outcome. So let's say it plainly. If this wasn't Rioli, would there be a suspension? If this was Toby Green? I suspect there was. And if the message was public, would there be more outrage? And if this was a rookie with no profile, the AFL would act differently. Because right now, there is no line, just vibes. And Gerard Whateley said it best when he said,
and I think in a different circumstance, this is a straight-up suspension. If you're sending threatening messages to a player the day after a game, you can go and sit for a while.
And instead, the AFL did choose to sit this one out, and everyone has noticed. I've said this before, and I'll always say it. Footy is bigger than one club, one player, or 1 week, but you have to have trust in your system, and this system is fragile. The AFL needs to stop hiding behind PR lines and resolve privately excuses and have framework for real consequences, real standards that punish the action, not the outcome. That is it. Action is the thing. We stop outcomes if we punish it. And they won't bring one in because the AFL literally has no business telling players how to behave. That's how they view it. They tell them what to think and how to feel, but the behaviour is always excused. And as Watson had said it so brilliantly.
And so then the likes of, well, I'm sure Will Powell and Tex and all these other guys you've just read out who have made mistakes aren't saying, what about me? But the general public are, Tim. They're saying, okay, why didn't the AFL extend the explanation, the lily-livered explanation about reminding both clubs to ensure any communication remain respectful? Why hasn't that been applied in the past? Why is this, when someone's threatening violence to an opposition player, that pretty light, soft reminder to ensure communication remains respectful, why hasn't that been afforded to other players in the past?
Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you feel like this should be a suspension? Did the AFL get it wrong here? What would your suspension be? And more importantly, how would you fix the system? I'm PommyInOz. I'll see you on the next one. Pom out.
Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.